Right, so this is the 60-minute cable SPR strategy, standing for stochastics pivot reversal, which kind of gives the game away, really, isn't it? I'm just going to break these videos down into bite-sized pieces. It makes it easier to upload. And so the first one, I'm just going to cover the basic setup criteria on the trigger chart, which is very, very simple. And then I'll move on to the next video and talk about setting my targets and other qualifying factors. So here it is. What we're looking for is the price to hit a pivot level with a stochastics cross going in the same direction. That's the basics of it. We can hit, or I can hit, any pivot level apart from the central pivot. So that includes DS1 and DR1. I do know that some people, I think, or a lot of people, I haven't looked at RSI that closely, but I'm aware that I think generally look at DR2 and 3 and DS2 and 3. But on this one, we get quite a few trades. Quite a large number actually that work very well off the first pivot, so we can use that. In fact, we've got one here even though it is quite extended on this chart, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that extended for it to still work. It all depends on your targets. So just to clarify what I'm terming as a stochastics cross, because there may be some confusion on that. I know that some people look about the blue line crossing the red line and so on. What I'm referring to is the line crossing and confirming having closed below the 80% line on stochastics, and vice versa the other way, crossing over and closing above the 20% line. That's what I'm referring to when I say stochastics cross, which might be confusing if other people are looking at it a different way. Maybe I should call it a different name. Suggestions on a postcard, please. Right. So here's this example. This happened on the 4th of April. This is actually the last trade, or the last setup so far this year. It's been a bit quiet since this stage. Sod's law, really, isn't it? But here it comes down. We've got a pivot hit here on DS1, but no stochastics cross. We've got a pivot here, but again, we're below the 20% line. We haven't crossed up. We've got another hit here. We're well below the 20% line, but still no stochastics cross there. And then we come back down here. We're on a new day, and now we're back to DS1. By this time, we've actually got a cross and a confirmed close above the 20% line. Now, what normally happens with stochastics and pivot levels and so on, as you're probably aware, is the price would come down, reach this pivot level here. If we had a stochastics cross below this point here, and the price then would probably then need to go back up in order for the stochastics to cross to then come back up itself and close above that 20% line. At which point we'd be up here somewhere, anywhere in this area here. Okay. In this instance, which is unusual, it does happen, but not that often, stochastics has closed above the 20% line before the price has actually hit the pivot level. Now, my entry that I'm using is to enter on the pivot level itself. That's what I'm backtesting for. There are obviously other ways you can do it, and I'm going to mention a couple of those in another video. But my entry is going to be on the pivot level here. So at this point, I would enter at 15850 or thereabouts. Normally, however, what I would have to do is the price would come down here and I would get a stochastics cross after the event. So I would actually have to wait and hope that the price came back down and made a second hit of the pivot level after the stochastics crossed over before I could enter the trade. I could do that either in real time, or I could, because I'm sat there in front of it, or I could place a limit order, because I know what level I'm going to go in at. But this one, I would actually be able to go in straight away because we're already above the line. I would say that if the stochastics has reached the 50% mark here before price hits the pivot, then I would say we're beyond the point where the trade is viable. Likewise, going the other way, if the price has come, or the pivot, I'll get my words out in a minute. If stochastics comes down and hits that 50% mark, and in a down trade, in a short trade, then again, before the price hits the pivot, I would say that doesn't qualify. Of course, from here onwards, we then rise up. So that's that strategy. The next one I'm going to go to, I'll do this in the next video, is some qualifying factors that I build in, which really do help to take out quite a few of the losers. So that'll be in the next video.